Sorry, that was way too loud. Hey, hi everybody, welcome back to the show.
Hey everybody, it's Rod Chesterfield.
Rod is back.
The big Rod.
And this is Derek Faree.
And I'm ready to drill, baby, drill.
We're going to talk about drilling real hard
I'm gonna
today.
drill Derek's mouth.
You better not, I swear to God, this will get real weird real quick.
just with this bottle of whiskey.
Oh, okay, good. What are we
Take it in.
Every time. What are we drinking this week?
I don't know what I'm drinking. Poured something brown.
We're drinking oil this week. You know, we're just trying to see what it does to us. Oil or glass.
Are you under the weather or something? Is there something wrong with your
I'm a little
voice?
snotty today.
Did someone drink a little too much whiskey this weekend?
I drank maybe a little too much whiskey this weekend.
And he's still recovering.
I went to Thon this weekend, which is a completely sober event. But I, being the mature adult that I am, went, to visit the kids at 3:30 in the morning.
Creeping on college girls?
He's like, hey, I used to own this school. Oh, I ran almost naked through the hub. True story.
Almost naked doesn't count.
I know.
It's all naked or nothing.
I was wanting to go all naked, but it was on camera.
Just cover it up. He's like, oh, my dick's so big, I can't even cover it up with both hands. So I don't even do that.
They were not impressed.
I think
that's the moral of the story.
She's my pinky. She's my pinky. I'm like, oh, don't look.
They looked because they were interested. They're like, how is that small? How does that work?
Speaking of which, funny quick story.
Okay.
Little anecdote. Got to share this.
Let's do it.
Frenton thought it'd be funny to get naked at a college party when we went back to visit our school that we graduated from a few years after. This is a few years ago. We're back at school, and my buddy thinks it's a good idea to just run into the middle of this party. He's like, oh, I'm going to get naked. It'll be funny, like old times. And he gets naked in the middle of this party, and then one of our other friends hits the lights because he's just in the middle, and no one really noticed he was naked because it was really dark with lights flashing and stuff. And the house lights come on, and there he is naked. And this fairly young college girl just turns and looks at him, and it's like, oh my God, it's so thin. Look how thin it is. And everyone at the party turned and just started making fun of his thin dick. And he just put his head down and ran out of the room. It didn't go well at all.
Backfire. Good God.
Look how thin it is.
Well,
anyway.
That's a lesson to be learned from if you're out in the audience.
Speaking of lessons to be learned, I guess there were some lessons to be learned this week on some of our old topics.
Well, net neutrality today, Thursday the 26th, seemed to get a victory.
Thursday the 26th, getting all corporate on us.
Just so you know, because I know
26th of 2015.
February, and when people start coming to the show months later, they're going to come back and listen to these episodes. So they got put it in perspective.
Way to think ahead.
Yeah.
Way to think ahead, Derek. Way to be a winner.
Yeah.
Way to be a winner.
Thank you, Rodney. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So that's a big victory for what we were talking about in weeks past. It sounds like we're going to be able to keep that open to everybody and kind of keep it open for expression. And
let's hope so.
Yeah. We don't know if they're going to try things down the road, but it's good for a step.
You don't know? I think that's a given.
And the other things that happened, the Oscars just happened.
Oh, who is wearing what?
Apparently, the director of Citizen4, the documentary about Edward Snowden, which we were talking about last week, was wearing a diaper because she looked nervous as hell on stage.
She's about to piss her pants because of the assassination threats?
I don't know. It's just when she went on the stage accepting the Oscar, congratulations to her, she looked nervous as hell. I don't know if it's just because she's overwhelmed by the moment.
Maybe she was on peyote or something.
But it just she's looking around. If you watch the video, to me it looks like she's like, who's going to take the shot? Where is this coming from? There's thousands of you looking at me right now.
Maybe it's her first time in front of that many people.
I mean, it's got to be overwhelming, regardless if you're on some kind of government watch list, as she clearly was.
Or hitless. Take her out.
Yeah.
Oh, she was in a car accident. How sad.
Oh, what happened?
Her accelerator got stuck, and she went off a bridge at 130 miles an hour and died on impact.
And then, she was stuck in her car, and then she froze to death because it's really fucking cold out.
Fire department ambulance didn't come. Oh, that got dark.
That's sad, Rodney.
Oh, that's really dark.
But, yeah, it's been cold, right?
It's fucking freezing out. I'm so ready for spring.
4 weeks or something, it's been below freezing here in Pennsylvania. I think we had 2 days maybe above freezing.
That's why we got to drill, baby, drill to keep it warm. Fucking hippies, let it get colder.
when it gets this cold for this long, it's almost like, 30 degrees is awesome.
Oh, it feels warm. Yeah, you're like, whoa.
I only need to wear one layer.
Yeah, when it's not windy and 30 and sunny out, you're like, oh my gosh! I never thought it'd be this warm again.
I thought about taking like my shirt off the one day, just be like, yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah, man. I just put my shorts on.
Mm-hmm.
Was doing some deep lunges in the backyard. It's like lunge.
You know what?
Lunge.
I see those runners doing that. They're in their little shorts. I'm like, it's not cold. I'm gonna run. I'm like, fuck you. It's cold out. Put some clothes on. There's people that run in short shorts in this kind of weather. Well, maybe that's as cold as it was.
Females, I feel like it's okay. If they're males, I kind of hate those dudes that wear the tiny short shorts. It's like, what's wrong with you? No one likes that. I guess some women like guys' legs. I guess a lot of women like guys' legs. So maybe women like that. But I don't like it. And everyone should do what I like.
Exactly. That's what this is about.
I mean, do you like watching guys in short shorts run?
No.
But you like watching girls. Not that you watch them, but like.
Oh, I watch them.
Oh, I'm a pervert. Oh, I stare at them. I slow down.
I slow down
the
and
window
I talk
down.
to them. Like,
So, what kind of music do you want to listen to? I'm just going to ride along with you for a bit.
yeah, it's cool if I just ride along with you, right? But yeah, it's like you drive up beside her and be like, yeah, can I just play some music here for you? Yeah.
What do you like?
You can take a break and get in my car. And that's when they pull out the mace, because a lot of them are intelligent. They have a little mace, and they're like, oh, okay, get out here.
That's why you wear a mask. Like a paintball mask. You're like, it doesn't work, got goggles on. Nice try. Back to the music. What station do you like? Don't make me gag you and throw you in the back. Let's at least try to get a nice conversation.
Rodney, no!
I was saying, this is what you do.
Oh, right.
I don't do this.
Don't give my secrets away.
You told me about these things that you do one night at the bar when you got really loaded.
That's a lie. None of that has happened. Just like climate change is a lie, right, Rodney?
No, I think the climate does change.
Oh, he does.
Yes.
Did you hear that, everybody?
But drill the fuck out of the earth. No. Yeah, baby. Oh, I love that milky black gold.
I just love when it seeps into the ocean and kills all those animals. Oh,
better kill those animals than killing people.
Oh, is that what you think, you dirty conservative son of a bitch?
You see, the fucking crazy liberal would rather kill people. He'd rather people die and freeze to death.
Have you seen how cute those seals are? Are they get all oily? Don't you just feel bad for them?
I do feel bad for them. I think we should just fucking throw those little guys in a big vat of oil and fry them up.
As you were saying that, you're like, I can't say that. You started laughing.
I can't say this serious. Just cook them. All that fat, the oil. Oh yeah.
Seal meat.
Just like
oily seal meat.
Fingering my navel.
Is it weird that people like the scent of gasoline?
What's wrong with liking the scent of gasoline?
I like it too, but it's almost like weird. It's like, we know it's toxic, right?
No, but have you ever really smelled it close? Because then it's too much.
Right.
Wait, have you ever seen the people that like drinking it?
I haven't seen that.
There's some people that drink gasoline.
Oh my god.
So, if you just like the smell, you're okay.
That's a good barrier to draw. But I guess my point is like, we need oil, but we know it's so toxic and bad for us and our environment, right? Like, we can agree on that.
I mean, I agree that it's toxic, and I don't necessarily think it's the best, but I think energy is helping humanity get to places it's never been before, and we have to figure out a way. I want to figure out ways to do it sustainably, definitely, because it's like, what's the downside? As long as it doesn't, well, I shouldn't say as long as it doesn't. I don't think it should hinder the advancement of humans and human technology and where we're going, because I think if we really want to survive long term, we have to figure out how to get off this planet, how to figure out how to live on other planets, and how to develop technologies that allow us to adapt and survive all over the cosmos. So I think just thinking about the Earth and that sustain us forever is, yeah, it's great. I love it, but I think it's limited.
You said something that makes me want to go off and be like, you said, what's the downside? And I get that a lot when I argue for making drastic environmental changes. People are like, oh, we can't afford to do that, or it's bad, or this is the free market suggests we should do this. I'm like, what's the downside of just living in a better environment, you know? Like, can't we just all agree to work on that to make the world a better place? That's my bleeding heart liberal views spew out.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree with you for the most part. I disagree with you on the let's make some drastic changes really quickly, because I don't know if that. I believe in like we're talking about climate change, motherfuckers, and I think we I don't know why I just did that.
We're leaving it. That's the whiskey.
The whiskey's talking.
The whiskey's like, I need to express myself.
But when you look at, and I'm not a climate scientist, so don't fucking listen to me.
Google it.
Google that shit.
We
But,
had a lot of tabs open this week, I will say that. I have the most tabs I've had open.
Now, are we going to look
all
at those
season.
tabs? Probably not. We'll
Yeah.
probably still just talk with generalities without many facts. But I think humans definitely have an impact on the climate. I agree with that too. And I think the climate's always changing. I think anyone who says the climate's not changing, I think that debate's over. I think logical, rational people all agree the climate's changing. I think there's a disagreement on why it's changing, how it's changing, and what's causing it to change at the rates that it's changing. And I sometimes wonder if we're focusing a little too much on just the carbon dioxide and greenhouse gas emissions, and we're not looking at the entire picture.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I don't disagree that coming up with green technologies is a good idea. Like, I don't disagree with that. I'm not like, oh, let's just completely stop drilling. Let's stop using coal. Let's stop using all these things immediately because we need to just do this. It's like, no, let's bring those technologies up to speed and then let's get off this stuff.
I said this in a hiccup last week, so I'll repeat it here because it's our show.
Say it in a sexier voice.
I'll say it in a sexy boy. When
Do
Mr.
you think that's
Obama,
sexy?
It's not a press woman. Hello, girls. So when Mr. Obama was elected, I got all like politics boner, if I can coin a phrase. I got a political
boner.
I'm like, oh, environmentalism is going to get so big over the next 8 years.
I'm going to fuck that tree in my backyard.
And what happened
It's my tree.
was we became the biggest frackers in the globe, and we're doing all this horrible shit now. But in a way, as you're saying, the transition needs to be slow. So I look at it in a political sense. I'm like, well, we're ending our dependence on foreign oil slightly. I feel like this fracking thing's a stopgap before we transition. And we still have certain milestones in place that targets we're supposed to hit by like 2020 or 2015, where we're supposed to convert so much to electric if we can. So I'm like, the transition might be slow. So I'm not as critical of
Electric burning, coming from coal burning power
Well,
plants.
yeah, that's always trouble too. And man, you think about the people who work in those industries, and that's the one conflict I do have when I think about like, I want all this green energy, but I'm like, yeah, that means I have to put a lot of people out of jobs, that work in the coal mining industry and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, you have to assume that there are going to be other jobs for those people to take if we think about it logically, because you look at those skill sets, and those skill sets are, I'm sure, still practical in other applications, right? Maybe we don't need them to mine coal. We can mine something else.
I agree.
There has to be something else to mine.
I just think when you try to convince people to vote for these progressive ideas for changing to green technology, people have worked their lives in the same company doing certain type of energy production, and now they're maybe 40, 50 years old, and they don't want to change, so they don't vote for it.
No one likes change.
Yeah.
And that's our whole point, is discussion is about change. And then that's the big problem, is that people need to get over the fact that thinking things are going to stay the same, because that idea is fucking ridiculous.
I think our generation, especially, I think stats have proven out in different articles I've read that most of us will have like 5 or 6 jobs in our lifetime, whereas in older generations you might have that one job and work it the whole lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
That's no longer a real reality for us with how quickly things change in globalization and that kind of thing. But how do you convince people to vote for putting themselves out of business?
I don't think it's, that's where I disagree. I don't think it's you can vote for any of this shit. I think it's people need to, this kind of goes back to how I feel about healthcare in some regards and some other issues, is I think if people feel passionately about these issues, then look at yourself. Look at what you really can change. You can change your lifestyle. Because we talked about this briefly before the show, and I'll just go there. Because you look at someone like Al Gore, he stands on the soapbox and talks about all of these things, and I don't think it's a bad thing that he brought some of these things to everyone's attention, said, hey, we need to be focusing on these issues, because it's good to have this discussion. But at the same time, he's flying around in his private Learjet. He lives in enormous mansions that consume enormous amounts of energy to keep cool, keep warm, keep the lights on, all that stuff. And it's like, oh, you're the one telling us all to cut back, and look at you, being a huge fucking rich, oh, look at me, bigwig, flying all over the place, spending tons of money, using tons of energy. So it's like, hey.
He's a bit of an egomaniac, I would think. I think he's got some ulterior motives going on. He kind of wants to be relevant, wants to be big. I think he won a Nobel Peace Prize, right? Or something like that?
Well, Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize, and we were fucking killing tons of people over the world at that time. So, like, what
that
does
one even
mean?
to me was kind of funny, because that was like year 1 of his presidency, and I'm just like, what happened? What did he do?
I mean, not that he isn't trying to do good things, but he's commander-in-chief of the world's biggest army that's killing the most people.
Yeah. I mean, I like the guy.
But anyways,
So far.
back to global warming.
Back to global warming and Al Gore. I get why people, they see Al Gore and they want to dispose of the argument completely because they think Al Gore's a dick. Maybe not you, but maybe people are like, I'm going to trust Al Gore. That guy's
He's
crazy.
the only man that looks like a pussy with a beard.
Man, bear, pig, to borrow from South Park.
I'm kidding now. You look fine with a beard. I'm just being a dick.
Does he still have a beard? I wonder, but
I don't think so. I mean, back to one of the points I made earlier about how we're focusing on carbon dioxide and CO2 emissions and greenhouse gases and that, and I think that's just one part of a much more complex issue, which is causing the climate to change. I think the climate's been changing for all of ever since the Earth's been here, it's been changing. And we've looked at this one graph, but there's Greenland ice core studies that they started back in the mid-90s, where they went up to the summits of some of the mountains in Greenland, took ice core samples, analyzed them, and then over the last several years they've been coming back with their research, and they found these graphs which show these variations in temperature going back more like 14,000 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And
you look at these trends in temperature, and like recently the trends have been pretty stable. Things have been going back and forth by a few degrees for a while, right? And several years ago, I guess it was like, 12,000 years ago, something like that, there were these huge shifts and these huge spikes in warming from much colder periods to much warmer periods over a very rapid time period. And then it cooled again, and then there was another spike in warming, and then it cooled again, and then it's been this slow warming that's been happening. And then there's been some other variations. It's not like it's a smooth line, but we can't explain what the fuck happened that caused these huge shifts in climate change. And people say, oh, well, those are natural events probably. Something happened. We weren't, burning fossil fuels or whatever. But, okay, true. But if carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases is like, oh, this is what we need to focus on, I don't disagree that that's causing a change. But if we can't explain what made these huge changes and we're just talking about these little changes, I think there's so much more to know, and we're just starting to figure it out. And to think that we haven't figured out, and it's just greenhouse gas and just focus on that and tackle that problem, I don't think is necessarily...
You showed me the graph, and it was tracking oxide in the atmosphere, I think, right?
They use that to define temperature.
In the ice core. And since it was basically stable while the carbon dioxide was changing in the atmosphere according to the ice cores, you were arguing that since that line was stable as carbon dioxide changed, maybe the connection isn't there between climate change and carbon dioxide, right?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases could have a change, but if we can't explain these huge variations in temperature that happened over a very short period of time, and that wasn't related to carbon change, then how can we act like it's just carbon dioxide that changes the temperatures? And if this happened in the past, if these huge changes have happened in the past, it's like using Murphy's Law. If it's possible, it's going to happen. So it'll probably happen again. So let's figure out what the fuck caused those changes too, and then bring that into the equation. Be like, all right, well, this could happen too, and it could, whether it's a super volcano, an asteroid, some other crazy event that we don't even fucking know about. But
and my argument was that the correlation over the last 70 years...
That you want people to die and freeze to death. That's your argument.
Here
if we have less people, we'll consume less. Let a bunch of people freeze to death.
Well, maybe.
Let's let a bunch of people die off, and then the rest of us can go back to what we were doing.
No, but the correlation over the last 70 years that's different there is those big fluctuations you talk about happened because of natural events, and now this big fluctuation has happened over the last 70 years.
Are humans not natural, Derek?
But they weren't around when
Are we not natural?
We're natural, but
Are we not like just a different version of ants in an ant farm and a natural product of having lots of people as some of these byproducts? Are we not natural? You're saying that we're fake?
We are, but we are doing very bad things to the environment.
We're not part of the environment?
We're like, what do we call it? A virus, maybe?
Are you saying we're the cancer of the world? So you're saying you don't support humanity. You want humans to die.
I want humans to live.
Is that what you're saying?
But I feel like when you overeat
Is that what you're saying, Derek?
We're a population overeating, and then you eat all the crops, and then oh shit, we should have planned this out and farmed better. Because right now we're seeing this trend where all this carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are ticking up, and the temperature's ticking up at a rate that's higher than we've seen.
Actually, over the last few years, the temperatures haven't still been climbing, I don't think.
You're wrong about that.
I don't think I have. Actually, they came out with a lot of evidence to support that.
I'm looking at NASA.
Carbon emissions have gone down. And
Well, that's a good thing.
they can't decide where the carbon sink is. And I don't think the temperatures are continuing to rise over the last 10 to 20 years as drastically as they said, because a lot of the sensors that they have are over. Have you looked at the studies where they have the sensors?
I don't know. This is all I got from NASA. 80 years. Up.
It's not just up. Look at that. That's definitely a flattening period, and then we're using the most right there. So how do you explain that? Why is it continuing to go up in the same trend?
It's still going up.
It looks like a flattening off to me.
And we have taken in these last...
No,
since
but India and
2004,
China have
taken-
not.
That's
See,
true.
this thing fucking pisses me off. Is people that are like, oh, we need to stop this. This is such a big problem, and don't realize it's the government's just trying to tax more of these things and make it cost more money for poor people and middle class people to use these things, while the rich are going to continue to do whatever the fuck they want. And these subsidies aren't even going to clean up the environment. And people are like, oh, we need to do all these things. If it was this big of a fucking problem and it's going to cause the world to fucking end and all these huge shifts, then shouldn't we go to fucking war with China and India right now? Like, shouldn't we be like, it's on, motherfuckers, because if you don't stop this, we're all fucked. But that's, I think, the big joke, is that that's not what's going to happen. And
We can't start a war over this stuff. It will destroy us all.
what are you talking about? We've got the major...
We have to invest in technology that would save the world.
We are investing in this technology. Those countries aren't going to do that anyways because it costs more money.
but
That
you-
costs more money. How do you
Right.
force a developing country to invest in new technology that costs more when we didn't do that?
We don't. We do it. We produce the best technology, and then we sell it across the world cheaply.
It's not cheap. It costs more.
It will be cheap if we...
Why would it be
find
cheaper
a-
if it costs more inputs to do it?
Originally, the research and development would cost more. But I didn't say the product, once you develop it, wouldn't cost
But
less.
we haven't developed it yet.
Because we're not investing enough in it.
We're investing tons of money. Lockheed
Not
Martin,
enough!
Lockheed Martin just came out that they're going to have fusion power in probably 10 years. They're
That's
investing.
good. That's what we want.
They're investing tons of money, but still, countries aren't going to do it. You don't understand economics, I don't think, because economies of scale, in developing countries, digging something out of the ground and having a lump of coal and you can just light that on fire and that's energy and you can do something with, I don't care what the fuck you say, developing some crazy technology that you have to buy and introduce there is not going to supplant that. So those
If humans
emerging
are
markets...
drowning because the oceans are rising, they'll accept that.
There's evidence to suggest that oceans rose over 400 feet, like, I don't know, several thousand years ago, very rapidly.
Because of huge natural disasters that we
But
can
that
control.
happened, and that
we
killed...
can control this.
But that killed most of the people, right? From what evidence suggests, there's a good chance we had a huge die-off. Because people have been around, fossils from modern humans have been around for like the last 180,000 years. There's a huge event that took place about 12,000 years ago. There's a lot of evidence to suggest this. And there's a good chance that it wiped out most of the mammals, most of the people, most of everything that was here. And yes, that was a natural event, but that happened. So us focusing on something that's changing a few degrees, yes, is it important to get better at it? Yes, I agree that it's important to get better. But to cause this panic and make it sound like oceans are going to rise, everyone's going to drown, that's ridiculous. I don't think this is going to cause that. Another natural event like that's going to cause it, and that could happen again tomorrow. So doesn't it make sense for us to develop technologies to allow us to adapt and move very quickly and to sustain ourselves more so than it's like, we want just green energy. I think there's a happy medium there, but I don't think we're cutting our nose off to spite our face. It's like, oh, we want everything to be green and we want to do it today. Well, that's not possible because you didn't build Rome in a day. And causing hysteria and making people think that oceans are going to rise so quickly because of carbon emissions, I think is a little ridiculous.
But if we don't encourage people to start now, and we keep having this debate over the last 10 years that it's not happening when everyone agrees that humans are impacting the climate, that's like every scientist says that, it's fucking stupid. We need to get past that. Like, we need to do something.
Yeah, we impact the climate by a few degrees. That's what it's showing. There are trends.
A few degrees in 70 years. That is a big change.
There have been jumps of more than 30 degrees in 2 years.
Because of natural disasters,
But
not
that's
because of human life.
but that's happened.
But
So
we're causing it. We are the problem.
we're not a problem because if that's natural, then how are we a problem? If that happened
Because we're
naturally,
adding all of that into the atmosphere.
but if those bigger swings are natural, then how are we not like? How is what we're doing not natural?
If you go to a farm and eat up all the crops and you don't make progress to replace those crops, like if you go and destroy the rainforest, destroy the lungs of the earth, and it can't take the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, you're going to wind up with a farm that doesn't grow crops and you're going to starve to death.
Well, you know what plants need to grow is carbon dioxide, right?
Right.
And all of the forest reports for the United States, so they had these reports, I think they started back in the 60s and 70s. I should have pulled this up, so I actually had the dates, where they said, oh, this deforestation, this is what's going to happen. And a lot of the old growth forests we have cut down. But what they didn't account for was because of these spikes in carbon dioxide, the other forests have grown back at a crazy rate. The other forests and plants have been growing insanely fast, much faster than we thought they were. And it's actually been replacing itself much quicker than we thought. And that's where they're starting to think this carbon sink has been. It's the plants are growing to counteract the fact that there's more carbon, because when they take that in, they do really well. And that's part of the process. I'm not saying
that would be good, but the Amazon is still getting destroyed at an exponential rate, and that was one of our biggest lungs, if you will, for taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And no one wants to stop them. I mean, we can, I guess, because one of those things. It's an international incident. You can't go down to Brazil and be like, stop cutting down the rainforest. You're going to kill us all.
I think they have been trying to curb that. But I mean, again, that's going back to the part that we're the biggest fucking consumer in the world. We're the ones using it. Go back to vote. What can you do to change your life? You look at what you can do, not what you want to tell everyone else to. We want everyone else to stop doing these bad things so we can keep being consumers and keep using everything. America's are where all the goods are coming. Like, everyone's selling their shit here. We're the ones that keep buying the shit for nothing. So how can we tell everyone else to stop working their shitty jobs where they're cutting down whatever they have, using their natural resources to provide us goods? How do you tell them to stop if we're not stopping?
That's true. And I think it just came to me as you were talking about, because you put up the point, was like, if you got coal to burn, you're just going to burn it. And like, where do we as a human species decide what we're doing is ultimately bad for us? Like, the oil and alcohol thing that I brought up, and one of the hiccups is like, you get addicted to something that's easy and quick and cheap, like fast food or alcohol or something like that, and you get addicted to it and you can't turn that off, and it's like you can't wean yourself off of it. What are you going to do? You're just going to keep burning that? Like, when are we as a society going to just wake up and be like, I'm not going to do this as a responsible human being. This is bad. Let's change that.
Well, I think see, that's where I don't think the things that we're doing are going to have the impact that people think they are. I think we're causing hysteria. I think it's a power and money grab. I agree that we're having an impact, but I don't agree that all of the information is there to show that we're having the impact that you're referring to. I disagree with that. But so people are addicted to energy, right? We're not going to stop using energy, right? Like, everyone wants energy, everyone wants things, so we want that. So if there's a demand, then there's a market for someone to come up with the supply. And by just saying, oh, we're like the government saying, we're going to pick the winners here, we're going to subsidize certain things, and that's going to force things to happen. No, what you should do is, if there starts to become shortages in oil, prices are going to fucking spike dramatically, right? That's going to cause a lot of problems, but what it's also going to do, it's going to force us to develop new technologies that are better than ever, that provide that energy that we want. And I still don't disagree. Like, we get excited about these things because I just disagree about the way that we're going to improve the world.
I like what you just said, because the Keystone XL pipeline, now we cut off a whole big thing that could have distributed a lot of oil around the world. But if we cut that off and make the supply lower, it makes the price go higher, and it forces people to create those other things. I know the government's doing that, trying to cut off the supply, which would then create the price to go up, right? The supply is lower.
Well, actually, right now, because of the fact that our economy's been shrinking, the global economy's been shrinking, there's a glut in supply. So supplies are still going up dramatically, and demand has been still trickling down. So there's a good chance oil prices are going to continue to plummet, and actually cause the investment into renewables to continue to go down until we get to that breaking point where but then it probably will spike back up.
That was one thing, like, I know I don't have kids or a family like other people do. I'm just a single guy, but I was like, if gas got to $6, people would actually get serious about finding something else. You know what I mean? Like, I was okay with that, because I'm one of the people who's like, we're fucking killing the planet. Can we fucking get on board and do what's right?
Well, I guess people might think I'm crazy for having this perspective, but thinking that the planet's what's going to sustain human life forever is ridiculous, because we know that it's probably not possible, because our sun has most likely a finite life, and that's a very long time away. Very, 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 very. So I'm not saying let's fucking destroy the world in the next 100 years. Just let's drill, baby, drill. But at the same token, if humans really want to survive, if life wants to move forward, we have to get the fuck off this rock. So it's important to develop technologies that are going to enable us to seed the cosmos, to spread life everywhere. And let's not limit our ability to develop those technologies by saying, oh, no, we can't do these things because it's going to hurt the environment, it's going to impact all these things, if we're not positive that it's not going to help us develop the next breakthrough technology. Because if we don't have energy, we can't keep developing new technologies, because oil is what creates solar panels. Well, like oil and plastics, what goes into a lot of these green technologies. And so it's like, it's this counterbalance. It's like, well, how do we use it most effectively? And I agree with that. So we shouldn't waste our resources as much as we can. But at the same time, how do you limit people's freedom to continue to develop?
I get caught up on the plastics thing too, and the solar panels having their own negative drawbacks. It's like, damn it, still relying on oil a little bit. But yeah, I just get caught up and I'm like, fuck, we can't get rid of it. It's everywhere. But it is.
I mean, there are bioplastics. There are greener plastics, but even a lot of those use additives that come from some sort of petrochemical. Like a lot of them, there are very few, which maybe more of that will develop then as oil goes up. But that's what I'm going back to, is the part of letting the market do what it does. Is so we're causing this hysteria, making it think like everything's going to shift so quickly, and I think we're going to have these natural crazy moments, and oceans are going to get crazy, sea levels may rise, but that's going to happen. We already know that's going to happen. That's happened in the past naturally, so even if we are having an impact on it, it's going to happen anyway.
Well, it's going to happen. Maybe the market's fucking stupid. Maybe it only reacts too late. And in this instance, we can't react too late because it's our fucking world. Because when you have a crash, the market changes. We can't have a crash in the environment. We can't have one day, something terrible happens, like the ice cap melts in a year, to be over dramatic, and everything gets flooded. We can't then go, oh shit, we got to start over with this. Like, we can't start over the climate. We have to pay attention to this.
But wouldn't it be better just to assume that that's going to happen regardless of if we control this climate change, because it has happened naturally, and say, okay, those things are going to happen because they've happened before, so let's figure out how we're going to survive when that happens, because that's going to happen. Whether we cause it or a natural event causes it, how are we going to survive when these crazy shifts happen? Because it's happened before. But we're like, no, everything's going to stay the same. New York City's always going to be the biggest city in the world and be here. No, it's not. It could be 100 years. It could be 1,000 years from now. Eventually, there's going to be another metropolis somewhere else, and New York City could be underwater and in ruins, and people are like, wow, I can't believe they thought that was going to be the biggest city in the world forever. But that's true. Like, this thing that we think we're going to be able to sustain things and keep things the way they are, I think is ridiculous. So let's get over that and realize we have to adapt.
So let's go green.
I'm not against green. I'm trying to play devil's advocate on some of this stuff.
I don't know.
You don't believe me?
I don't trust you, Rodney.
I don't trust you at all.
Although I'm the one who's like, yeah, just let people die off.
Just let them die. Well, that's how do you provide for 7-8 billion people? How do you do that with green technology? Has that ever been proven before? Do we know how to do it?
That's a big hang up, and I just get fuck.
Everyone's like, oh, but they say that there's enough. They do say there's enough solar power like hitting the earth to like generate so much power. Like if we were just be able to harness it, but we need batteries. So if we can create large scale batteries, we could actually do that. And I think they're getting close to that. And if they're able to do that, our electrical grids would change very quickly, and it would make like solar and wind power, I think, much more attractive.
And they have problems with battery acid and disposal and that kind of thing, which always is a big hang up.
Right, because our power grid, it's like we need to use whatever comes into it right away.
Right. So that's definitely a good point. So you're saying how there's like a CO2 dip, I think, or at least you said something like that. I just wanted to bring up the ocean acidification point of...
Oh, you're going to say that the ocean's sucking up more carbon?
Yeah, it's sucking up more carbon. I don't know if that's related, but it has increased about 30% since the Industrial Revolution. And this makes me worry. I know there's a lot of coral dying around the world, and people are like, coral's pretty, but I'm like, does it have any important impact to humans, like you were arguing? Like, is that really a big deal if we kill off the coral?
As long as humans live, I don't give a fuck what we do.
In some countries, I guess they depend on fishing more than we do.
Oh, a ton. Yeah.
So you got to worry about that a little bit.
Like Somalia, that's a good case study of a country relying on fishing and seeing what happens when you fuck up their entire coast.
Yeah, that's never good. And then you get like these, I hear of underwater like deposits that might bellow out from the depths of the sea after a concentration gets too high, and it'll just be back into the atmosphere like
or release a ton at one
time.
I've read about that too.
And I'm just like, that doesn't sound good either. I just want to add that to our presentation, if you will. That
presentation, like, you're full of shit, Rod. Damn it. No, I mean, I think there's probably good reasons for that. Yeah, and I think I've read that too. Before I brought that up, I was like, hopefully Derek didn't read about this.
Well, you mentioned it's like you. I was like one of the Californians from SNL. you mentioned how they're in this NASA chart. There's kind of like a leveling off over the last 8 years, and I start to wonder because I took meteorology classes. I'm not a genius, obviously. It was meteorology 001. It was like an elective, but when ocean currents change, if there's more water melting into these currents, colder water is coming down from the north and coming to the south. And what people don't understand is ocean currents and air patterns are related.
Yep.
And there's two jet streams, one in the north, one in like the Tropic of Cancer or Capricorn. Well, on both hemispheres, there's two jet streams. And these things are starting to get more out of whack because of the unnatural, I think, movement of these currents and the change in these currents. At least that's how I see it. So we get these big dips. Right now it's been cold for like a month. People are like, oh, this isn't real. Like we've been
Does it have
record-breaking
anything
cold.
to do with the El Nino and El
And
Nino?
I just want to tell people, like, no, what you're seeing is more instability in the climate, which is actually scary. And I get worried. This is just completely hypothesis out of nowhere. It's just, if the Earth has the ability to regulate itself, I feel like that's what it's trying to do right now. It's like, oh shit, this is weird. And it's trying to restabilize itself. And we're kind of like, nope, we're just going to throw more of this in the atmosphere and see what happens.
See what happens.
And it's not that the Earth has like an intelligent brain, but there are patterns that build on top of each other and cause reactions. And when those patterns break down, then what happens? Does it escalate high, like I was talking about in the hiccup, where we get the Venus level and we can't get out of this greenhouse effect that just builds on top of each other?
Well, that's why I hope we develop technology to get the fuck out of here, even if that is what we're going to do, just so we can get the fuck out of here. How do you know that's not what we did? Maybe we were on Venus when we came here.
Hey, people like to suggest Mars, right?
I think people do talk about, like, oh, there's some Martians that came over from Mars.
Yeah, man. Ancient aliens. It's aliens.
I love alien theories.
How are they not entertaining? You think about this.
Maybe that's what will happen. Some aliens will come down and be like, right before we're about to cook the planet, they'll be like, yo, here's the good shit. Here's that good technology. You guys, you little silly monkeys haven't come up with
It's
it.
like, guys, we taught you, like, in 7000 BC how to do all this stuff, but you didn't listen to us.
We taught you, and then that asteroid hit you guys, wiped you all out. We never really came back and retaught you, so...
We checked you out, we finally got here, here's what you do.
You're a little out of the way. Going back to this this ice core study, and...
Wait a second. I think we have to pay tribute to Halftime Top-Up. I need more whiskey. We yelled at each other.
I don't know if we yelled, we just got passionate.
We got passionate, but I liked it.
It
lit a fire.
I'm getting passionate even though I don't necessarily even agree with everything I say. It's just that I like arguing.
It's funny because I think both of us, I don't know what happened there. I'll have to listen to it again, but I was just like, I want to say words now.
I don't think I was making any sense for a while.
Ah!
Oh no, let the markets control it.
Our monkey brain took
We're
over.
never gonna get there if we don't just do it, you idiot.
We're all gonna die, don't you understand?
But we're alive now, enjoy the whiskey. But that's the thing I love about this is that we can talk about shit even when we disagree or we're just being silly and I'm just arguing and being ridiculous and not making logical sense.
So, this is
And
the
we can
last
still
Whisky
talk
and
about it.
Wi-Fi, Rodney. This is it.
I'm fucking done with this. Fucking hate shit.
Never again.
You're a fucking bitch. Let's go really, Joel. You just hear gunshots.
Boom.
You just hear you pack up your stuff.
Slowly, silently. It's not even uploaded by me, it's uploaded by somebody else.
No, you're back up next to just the different co-host. And my new co-host.
Chester Rodney film.
Different voice. Different voice. It's a computer voice. You just like type a script and hit play.
I'm happy to be here.
I love you,
I'm
Derek.
definitely alive.
Drill, baby, drill.
Rodney, you're so silly.
Derek, you're so smart.
I love you. That's ridiculous. My brain hurts. Cheers.
But getting back to blowing our noses.
Fucking cold.
You love when I blow your nose, don't you?
Well, that's the thing. This is one over my head.
That's the thing about people blowing my nose for me.
As I said, it's cold here. I lived without winter for 16.5 years. Part of me is like, global warming would almost be nice because it'd be a lot warmer all the time, right?
It's interesting you lead to that segue because it's like if you look back to the Little Ice Age, which is dated back I think to the Dark Ages, that when we have had some of these cooler periods, I mean, there's a time period I think during the Dark Ages where it was so cold that a lot of areas where we were living during that time, like in England and parts of Europe, crops were devastated because of cooler temperatures, because of a cooling period. Crops were decimated. People did not have food. We weren't able to grow things. People didn't have access to nutrients, which led to a lot of die-off, led to lots of plight, led to a lot of bad things. And then when things started warming again, things got a lot better again. And so when you have warmer periods and people can go outside, they can plant things, everything's going great, things seem to prosper. But when it's colder periods, but you don't want to go too far. I mean, you've made that point. We don't want to cook the planet, become Venus, so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
But colder temperatures aren't necessarily great either.
No, that's a good point. I mean, you don't want to get...
Like, do you want to be in another ice age?
That'd be bad. Nobody wants that.
If we went too far, all these technologies that are so green, we don't realize, like, we were actually on shift for cooling. We need to ramp up the warming again,
Burn
guys.
it again. Burn it again.
Turn on the furnace. Burn that coal, motherfuckers.
People are just throwing lit gasoline around for no good reason.
That would be really funny if somehow we were able to reverse things so quickly and all of a sudden that became apparent. Things are going off so quickly. We're getting too good at this.
Well, back to the scientists who told you about last week. Being able to control your climate was one of the...
Oh, it's like DARPA technology.
Yeah, it's like you can do that. It makes you a 1.0 species.
It's like, you're in the... going to that.
Yeah, going to that thing.
Well, they were talking about, like, you've read about some of that stuff with DARPA, and they can, like, produce, I think, sound waves, like, in the ionosphere, and they think they might be able to use that to control weather in other parts of the world and stuff. Have you ever read any of that shit?
I read a little bit about it. It's just...
I don't know if it's real, but...
like, the theory didn't make sense to me.
It's way over my head.
I was just like, maybe they can do that, but it's so... Like, meteorologists can't even predict weather, like, in an hour.
Yeah, so how are we going to, like, manipulate someone else's weather?
But climate, if you can manipulate that, that'd be cool. But
well, you were pointing out, like, that people say as it gets warmer that it's going to, patterns are going to increase in variation. But there's a lot of evidence to suggest that actually during warmer periods, the variation's less. And during colder periods, there's actually more variation.
but on the chart you showed me?
Yeah, but people only focus on like the last 150 years or the last 200 years. And it's back before we had some of these major shifts when things were a lot cooler actually than they are now.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go back to like, there's natural events that might have caused some of these changes and whatnot. But still, if we can't explain that, if we can't explain the natural events, then how can we just think that we can even explain how we're impacting all of the natural events going on around us?
Science. Not that I have all the science here, but we agree that we think humans are affecting the climate.
Oh, humans,
right.
I agree with that. I don't agree with the necessarily if we understand how much of an impact we have and if we know how great of a change there's really going to be based on what we're doing and in regards to all the other natural shifts that are going on all around us all at the same time.
So you're saying that we can't predict what's going to happen. Is that what you're trying to...
And I don't think we should just be focusing on what humans are doing. I think we should just figure out, hey, there's lots of reasons why weather changes. Weather has changed a lot in the past, much more extremely than what we're experiencing now. And so if it happened in the past naturally, and if we're having an impact on it also, shouldn't we, I keep repeating myself, shouldn't we just focus on the fact that there could be some extreme changes very quickly, whether it's our fault, nature's fault, a freak accident, and figure out ways to survive during those changes and acknowledge that the changes is going to happen and things aren't going to stay the way they are, because I think that's what we keep holding on to. It's like we don't want ocean levels to change. What if they would change and they drop 30 feet or 100 feet and it's all of a sudden these ports like in Boston, New York, and in Miami we're dry and surrounded by land, and we're like what would happen? Like, or if people are like, well, you can't predict that, and we can predict this. And I appreciate that. I appreciate looking at our impact and really being honest about it. And it makes sense to figure out sustainable ways of living regardless. Like, that, I don't think there's a drawback. Let's figure out how to do it smart so it's not detrimental to human society, though. I'm pro-human. I'm pro-people. And that's pretty much all I care about are people, number one. I love animals. I love plants. I love life in general. I appreciate life. But I'd rather humans survive than anything else.
Well, you kind of made the point of having to adapt or investing in ideas to adapt regardless, because we don't know when the next big disaster happens. And I want to bring up from an organization I worked with, not really worked with, supported.
Oh, I see what you're doing here.
Oh, wait.
I see what you're doing here.
I'm going to bring
and
up
a commercial from our next
350.org. Their name is 350.org because they say you need to keep carbon dioxide parts per million under 350. We're up to 400 now. So, as idealistic as their goals were, it's like, oh, we're in their idea. If we don't reverse it, we're just kind of screwed already. So it's like, should we be preparing for
400 parts per million?
Yeah. Which, in the
It's
NASA
like-
data, we haven't gotten past like 300. We haven't gotten past 300 in the last 650,000 years by NASA's data.
Right.
And now we're up to 400. So, my point is, you're saying we should be developing ideas to adapt no matter what.
Right.
And I'm saying we might already be at that point. Maybe we should be adapting ideas of how to adapt to that climate change because it's coming.
Oh, and that's fine. But see, that's this idea that, okay, so if we're already too late and things are already going to start changing, like this whole concept, like, oh, we got to make sure we like, my parents have a beach house, and like, oh, we got to build up these dunes and protect this island from sinking and going away. It's like, no, like, if oceans rise and the coastline changes, that's just what's going to happen. It's like, well, you're going to build a seawall, like, everywhere, and it's going to be like New Orleans, where you're under sea level and you're surrounded by water. Like,
Even I was like, Katrina was awful, don't get me wrong. I don't like human suffering. Part of me was like, shit, that thing's under sea level. So that's going to happen again, right?
Yeah.
You know, eventually.
Right.
But I guess people live there. It's hard to be displaced. But I feel like that's going to happen coming up. But then again, it could just be one of those sensationalist things where people get you scared into reacting a certain way.
Well, I guess my question is if you're advocating for something to happen, what do you want to happen that's going to be the catalyst for this change?
Me? Let's see. That's a good question. I want people to... For me, there's still too many people in our government, personally, that don't think it's a thing. That's what bugs me. A lot of people on the right, conservatives, from conservative districts across the country, like even our head of our environmental agency in the Senate brought a snowball into the Senate today and said, "This is a snowball, you see this? We're having unseasonable cooling right now," and tried to make that a point to disprove that climate change is happening. And I'm like, this needs to stop. We need to stop being children about this. I think that's the first step. And then the second step is talking about how we're going to make that change. And for me, in my limited opinion in education, is like, let's invest in solar and wind and hydro energy and that kind of thing. And stop. Here's one thing that really bugs me. The subsidies we give to oil companies drive me crazy. I'm like, I mean, we need subsidies to keep oil cheap for everybody, I guess, but I'm like, can we wean ourselves off of that? Stop propping up these oil companies?
I mean, why does the government subsidize anything?
That's a good question, too. That's another 30-minute discussion.
I mean, like
really.
they subsidize corn for ethanol.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. It's caused the price of food to go up like dramatically, and meat to go up dramatically because it causes food stocks to go up. Like, there's lots of weird things. So I don't disagree with you that because we've talked about that if you let markets behave, which I advocate for that, let markets behave naturally, and that would be a good possible, I mean, not necessarily a good effect, because I want the economy I want people to have jobs, I want people to be able to feed themselves, but by subsidizing things, you're allowing for a misallocation of wealth. I mean, you should let things behave naturally. And so if oil should be priced higher because it's more of a rare resource, if that's what would really happen.
And maybe I don't understand that fully, but that's part of...
But if that would,
yeah.
I mean, that would force things to happen naturally. That would force things to happen probably pretty slowly, naturally with the market. As the price of fuel continue to go up, people would have to find alternatives. And if green alternatives are a better way of doing it, they cost less money, then people would do it naturally.
Here's what I get angry about. I think we are suppressing the demand for green energy by denying climate change is happening. Because when there's lots of demand, people will supply it. There'll be a profit mode or a market motive to supply that demand. And right now, our demand's kind of like, it's higher than it has been for green energy. But if we get everybody on board, it's like, oh, we need to make green energy to help the environment and keep the atmosphere clean. If we get everybody on board, the demand will be higher for that product, and maybe we get more suppliers. Maybe the price will be more cost effective and that kind of thing.
I just don't know how you could ever, we said this earlier, how you can ever make something that you have to produce cheaper than something you can literally just dig from the ground.
Well, that's the thing.
Like, how do you make something cheaper? You'd have to supply it for people for free. So you basically have to subsidize
Well, I'm
all
glad-
of the developing world.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because we had a doggy break there, and in my doggy break, I'm like, how am I going to refute that argument? And I would refute that if, like, you're poor in a poor country, is it really cheaper for you to get coal? Because coal only exists in limited places. Oil only exists in limited places. It's not that easy to get oil or coal unless you have it underneath you.
Yeah, a lot of developing places. Like, what poor place are you talking about?
Well, I didn't know what you were referring to when you made that hypothetical.
Well, lots of developing countries are just getting robbed for their minerals, and we're just not paying them enough, and they should be using more. I mean, there's very few places that don't have natural resources that they can provide really cheap natural
that's the
fuels,
thing.
whether it's wood, whether it's coal, whether it's oil.
But they all have sunlight, and they all have wind power, and they all have hydropower.
So, how do you get power out of the sun for free?
I mean, you can build.
How do you build?
Windmills.
How do you build that? Where do you get the power to build that? Where does that come from?
There's people in Africa that are developing their own power to pump their own water now. There's entrepreneurs in these poor countries. They're taking their natural resources to produce their own power.
And that's what I'm saying. Natural resources like coal, wood, water. I mean, that's the.
But I'm saying maybe coal and wood isn't as easy as you argue it to be.
I'm saying it's free. It's on the fucking ground. You can pick it up. So if
But that's not true
The
in,
point
like,
you
the
made
desert.
earlier was solar power, wind power. Those
Right.
things aren't free. You need to make those things.
Right.
Do you understand the inputs that it costs to make those things? Whether it's manufacturing the goods, whether it's transporting the goods to the areas where you actually want to install them,
Right.
whether it's connecting them to an infrastructure where the power is getting somewhere. Like all of those things take energy, power, and inputs. So yeah, you can build those things, and then once they're there, they're producing power. But we don't have the technology right now to even harness that power and sustain it and control it in our energy grids. Like we can't even if that's the thing to do, we don't have the technology to do it. We don't even know how to do it.
But that's not a good argument for not trying to do it.
We are trying to do it, and once that technology is there, everyone's going to do that.
Right.
We don't have the technology yet.
But we're trying to do it, and people get backlash on the right for trying to be progressive about it.
No, the problem that people have is that taking government money and picking the winners and losers. Let it happen naturally. Let supply and demand control it. And people are like, it's
But-
not happening fast enough. And I think that's bullshit. I don't think there's any evidence to
Well,
support that. And it's a power grab. It's people saying, I want control of this money and I want to pick the winners and losers. It has nothing to do with what's actually happening. I think in 50 years, they're going to look back at this climate change, this climate science thing, and there's going to be a ugly curtain that's pulled back, and these people that are saying I'm on the left, I only care about the planet, they were just as greedy and ugly as what we need to get to next, our conspiracy corner.
That's true. We gotta get to the conspiracy corner.
It's this fucker that was taking money from the gas companies, because I think everyone's just trying to get paid and
Well, here's what happened this week.
yeah.
Well, here's the thing. This is a conspiracy that's happened.
So it's real.
So,
Which annoys me when people are like, "Oh, conspiracies never happen." No, conspiracies happen all the time.
and there was articles I read.
People conspire to do bad things all the time, and that's a conspiracy, right? If you conspire.
And you sent me a good article this week. It's like judges take conspiracy very seriously. If you think somebody's committing conspiracy and you have proof of it, it's just a legal term. It's not this weird, far out idea. It's like, oh, conspiracies happen. People get together and collude.
Conspire.
Conspire.
Yeah.
We're conspiring in our own little way. We're not, planning to do
We're not doing
anything
bad
terrible.
things.
Yeah.
We're just trying
We're
to
not
talk.
doing anything
We're
bad.
just talking
We're
over drinks and yelling at each other.
We're conspiring to make a radio show.
I'm gonna kick Derek in the dick. If he tries to tell me I can't burn my fucking pellets in my pellet stove.
Fuck you, Rodney. So we talk soon
So, this guy with a crazy name.
of the Harvard Smithsonian Center.
I guess
for
that name's not
Astrophysics.
crazy. It's just not normal to my stupid American
Well,
self.
it's different. That's for sure.
We hawk soon.
Took $1.25 million from
It's
companies.
the most popular Asian name ever. It's like, oh.
He's like, everyone's a soon over there. Oh, I didn't know.
1.2 million for some big oil wigs.
Yeah,
big
and the
oil
Koch brothers
companies.
were involved a little bit. They didn't supply all the money, but everyone on the left knows
Only
the Koch brothers.
1.1 million.
Yeah, they're our big enemy on the left. So my reaction when I first read this story is like, this doesn't surprise me at all. This is what I feel like people should just know, but I don't know if people don't care or just
Someone
don't
took some
recognize
money. It's actually not even that much money, I feel like.
it. Well, he's a Smithsonian Harvard scientist.
He probably doesn't even need money.
Over his career, he could make so much more than $1.2 million, I
But he
feel.
probably has.
And he probably has, and this doesn't seem like enough to throw his career away, but he wasn't reporting where his money was coming from.
Has it really thrown his career away? Is it going to throw his career away? Is he done? Is it like, you're
I
fucking
don't- I
done? You're fucking done,
I
we
feel
hot
like
soon.
he's done to me. If whatever he wants to say after this, he can, but fuck him, I don't trust him. So, I mean, he's shady. You're supposed, every, like, scientist, when they do reports like this, are supposed to disclose information to say what might be a conflict of interest.
Sure.
He didn't do that. And that's what people said from the Smithsonian Center. It's just like, yeah, you got to do that.
Right. It'll be interesting, though, if they look back through his research, and if his research is still good research, even though he took the money. I mean,
That
if his
would be
research,
interesting, to
if
be
his
fair.
research is fucked, I mean, it seems like there should be more scrutiny on his research, because most research is peer-reviewed, unless his isn't, for some reason, if he's not.
That's a good thing to look up, actually.
To be like, all right, this guy's not dropping all just smoke and mirrors, or I don't know.
It seemed like people were suspicious of him to begin with, which led to this investigation, which Greenpeace then released and showed.
It seems like he should have taken a lot more money than that.
That's what I,
It's
honestly...
like, you idiot, you didn't ask for nearly enough money.
For me, it's like 1.25 million. Like, that's a lot to me, but for you?
Sounds so fucked up for you should have asked for more.
You could have got... The Koch
weren't
brothers
greedy
are worth, like $8 billion, trillion each or something. I don't know.
Something crazy. Something I can't even wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Which, it like this whole system, it doesn't mean there's not lots of greed and broken stuff. And I think people should just start consuming less. I mean, that's the bottom line is, like, that's the solution to a lot of these problems is if we start consuming less. I don't think we necessarily need to stop oil and coal and some of these things. If we all started consuming less, a lot of these trends would stop reducing, whether it's we're eating too much food, we're just using too much disposable shit. Like, we throw out a lot of garbage that...
Yeah, that's the thing you're saying now that I was inarticulately arguing against earlier. It's like, when are we going to say the way we live isn't sustainable? Sometimes. Like, I don't, especially as the population gets over 7 billion, going to 10 billion by like 2030 or whatever. I'm like, we can't keep doing this. And maybe it's not climate change, maybe it's just feeding ourselves. And
Could just be
getting enough
trash.
water. And then the trash, we got the island of trash out in the Pacific.
The climate's fine, but we just have all this trash.
Yeah, that bugs me too. And that's the thing people get upset about. He's like, you want to tell me how to live my life, and I want to live free, I'm an American, I want to live, like, I want to do whatever I want. I get that, but when is personal responsibility going to kick in? And it's one of those things, like, if you can't take care of yourself and you're hurting the people around you, fuck you. It's like, I want to provide laws that say you can't do that. It's like one of those things, like, I want to shoot my gun off whenever I want. I'm like, no, you shouldn't shoot your gun off between 10 and like 6 a.m. or something like that. I believe in laws that like restrict people's rights to some extent.
I thought you said the opposite. I thought you said like, I was thinking you said 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. I'm like, you just want to shoot. I didn't.
I meant like overnight. Like, you don't. I don't want
you
you
said
to
it. You
create
said
a
it
sound
right.
violation.
You said it right.
Yeah.
You said. Yeah, you said it correctly, and I transposed it. I flipped it in my head.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got you off.
My point was just that I know it's not liberty in the pure sense of the word, but for me, it's like, let's grow up. We have to come together and figure this out. Like, we're a society, we're a collective in a way. And I feel like when there's big problems like this, it's like, maybe it's okay to make laws that are hindering people's rights, as long as it's not like too restrictive.
Yeah, well, see, that's I mean, I could be totally wrong, and in 20, 30 years, you could be like, oh my God, everything's going crazy, like, we're fucked. And I'll be like, well, I mean, what I'm doing isn't really going to impact it other than if I tell people something that's totally wrong and they tell someone else it's totally wrong. But you don't listen to this show, so I don't have to
No,
worry
I
about
mean-
that.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But there's people on TV that lie all the time, like this guy,
Well, I'm not.
who makes a huge impact on how people make decisions about their lives.
I don't know if it came out that he lied. It just wasn't disclosed where he was getting some of his money from. Like,
Okay, well, he lied.
about his money, but not his study, not the research. He was
And I
talking about
guess
solar
you're right,
flares and
but-
things like that. I don't think people have necessarily gone through. If they start to come out, I think more will have to be done to look into what he actually would talk about to say the scientist was full of shit. I mean, regardless, yeah, I mean, he should disclose where his money's coming from.
I was gonna say, why would you hide it if you were just like, oh, this is my research, I don't care, you can pay me, it's still there. But if you hide it, then it just makes you look suspicious.
I mean, I guess, but $1.25 million doesn't seem like a lot of money. Like, if he hid like $100 million, it would seem a lot more crazy to me. $1.25 million doesn't get you very far. It seems like a lot of money, but if you buy like a nice house, like just your property taxes and other things are gonna, I mean...
That's a good point.
I mean, I'm not
Fair.
saying there isn't smoke there. I'm not saying there might not be some fire there.
Yeah.
But I'll be curious to see what they actually say about the research that he's shown to Congress and to other bodies, which have had an impact on this.
Since we're in Conspiracy Corner, I'm throwing it up here because I'm drunk. Not really drunk. I'm not drunk, but I'm tipsy.
You're so drunk, Derek.
I don't get why energy companies wouldn't move into investing in green energy when it seems like there's a demand for it. Like if you have all they profit billions of dollars.
I can tell you why.
Okay.
I mean, it might not be exactly why, but I bet you go, that makes sense.
Well, I was just gonna say, I'm like, if you see this demand growing generationally for greener energy, and you have all these $1 billion of profit, why not just invest in it and take over that market before it gets to be competition?
So, if you had a conglomeration of huge energy companies that have tons of money, right, and there's only a few, like, it's a pretty hard market to get into. Until there's a lot of startups from this fracking thing, because a lot of little independent minds started doing that, but before, I mean, you look at like ExxonMobil, BP, there aren't too many enormous energy conglomerates. So you've developed this technology over, the last century. You have rights to all these reserves all over the world. You have the technology there to get it out. If you would introduce green technology before you get as much bang for your buck out of those natural resources, now the technology you've already developed, you're basically limiting your profits, because you can use up as much of that as you can and then still show that green technology you've already developed and have been sitting on for a while, and also get that. So I get what you're saying. You're like, oh, why don't they introduce? I wouldn't be surprised if some of these huge energy companies do have some crazy green technology already that they are just like, well, once things get bad or things get rough, we'll introduce that and we'll take over that. I wouldn't be surprised if that's already what's going to happen. But if you were that guy that's like, I'm sitting on, today this is worth a ton of money, but if I show everyone this fusion reactor that makes it so that this coal is worthless, like...
I mean, I'm glad you said it in that eye, because you articulated it better than I, but you still made the point I was like teasing at. I'm like, are they just fucking with us to make money? And if they are, isn't the free market in that sense bad for us? Because profit drives the collective, or overrides the collective good.
Well, if people don't realize what's happening, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, because if you look at human innovation and where we've come from, humans are prospering more than ever before. Like, our lives are better than they ever have been. Are we impacting our climate? Yes, we're definitely impacting our climate. Are we going to ruin the world with what we're doing? I think if the human population keeps growing and we don't get that under control, that's a bigger problem than some of these technologies. It's that there's too many fucking people.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. We have this population growth and this climate change thing happening. And people live too close to the water, just because that's how naturally we evolved, is you have to live close to water, you need water to live. So it just sets us up for this weird kind of coalescing of disasters.
Was there even are there technologies that we're going to be able to develop that could sustain 30 billion people on the planet Earth, or what? I'm not saying
that's a good point.
But it's like even the greenest of technologies can sustain this population spring, or that's not the right word, but growth that we're still going through. Because if we limited that, like think if we only had, I'm not saying that we should kill off a bunch of people, but if we didn't have nearly the number of people we had right now, and we were even still doing the things that we were doing, it probably wouldn't be having nearly the impact that it has. But because of the scale that we're doing it, I mean, I agree that that's not good. I'm not for just destroying the Earth.
Right.
But I am for figuring out how to fly a spaceship to Mars and seed that planet and live there too.
I like that idea, but there's still part of me that's like, it's sad that we can't take care of our own planet. It's our home. It's Mother Earth. It's our mother. But you just let your mother die and be like, I'm gonna go over to this guy.
Your mom dies usually before you. If you're the child, hopefully you outlive your mother. So if we grew from this planet, I'm hoping yes we can outlive the Earth. I do hope that. I mean the Earth's been great, but if we can develop technologies where we can find 4 other planets that are similar and really awesome, and we can start living there too, I don't think we should be we need to right now because it's what sustains us for sure. We can't just destroy it. But big picture, really looking out there, I think our focus should really be to get the fuck off this rock and live all over the place.
Give it to NASA.
I would love it if we gave more money to NASA.
And they're the ones doing all the climate change research that I quoted tonight.
Which I think a lot of that comes from satellites, so it's fairly accurate. Because I was like, well, have you read some of the studies that used to come out? I took some environmental classes in college, and there were some studies that we discussed pretty openly where they had these heat monitoring devices or temperature monitoring devices all over. I think a lot of it was for the United States. I don't think they have these all over the world, but the study that we focused on was showing the impact of climate change in the United States. And the study showed this warming trend, But then they started looking at where these monitors were placed and everything, and they put them all over a lot of heat sinks. Like a lot of them were over macadam. Like,
Okay.
just because it was a municipality parking lot, and that was the place where they got zoned to put it. So I don't know if they actually thought that, like, oh, we'll put it here because it's going to get warm. It was just like that was the most convenient place to install it. But when they started thinking about that, they're like, well, we put all of these monitoring devices, like a high percentage of them, in places that are susceptible to be much warmer than what it even is naturally in that area. And so that report that we looked at was when you really looked at it, it was skewed to a sense. I mean, there's still data that's, because if you're putting more macadam everywhere, then that's reflecting more heat, and that's also a bad thing too.
Yeah, my meteorology class, it was just known that cities create their own weather because they radiate more heat.
Yeah,
like if moisture comes over a city, storms produce more quickly because of the rapid heat rise, convection. Yeah. So yeah, what you're saying, basically, I'm saying you're right.
And well, I mean, then that's an impact humans have on our climate too, and that's not just carbon. That just has to do with how we build structures and roads and bridges, and that has to do more with the overpopulation of the Earth, which I think we would agree on is probably causing all of these things.
It just worries me because as we get more populated, and now we have this huge drought in the West, and there's been studies that came out last week or two where it's like, this drought could really affect farming in America if it, goes on. And then in the 30s, we had the Dust Bowls. Like, are we due for another one of those?
Possibly.
So it just makes you think. It's like, how can we make this all work? And it's like you said, we need to think about this stuff regardless. But for me, it's like, if we're causing it, we should at least get all on board. And I don't know how to get countries like China and India involved, because China just will do whatever the fuck they want. In India, they have such a big population. Both of those countries have such a big population, we don't even compare. It's like, oh, we have 350 million people. China and India are just like, shut the fuck up.
We have billions of people to take care of.
Yeah, do you understand how bigger countries are?
Oh, we can't put enough solar panels to give us all. Yeah, I don't know. And I got fired up, and I'm not angry or anything. I probably sound like, oh, shut up, Derek.
It's fun.
But yeah, it's fun getting into these conversations. I don't think I dropped many facts that were actually concrete.
And we're coming to the end, but I just wanted to mention that, man, you just look at the universe and how it survives and moves and rebirths itself in a way. This is getting really deep. This might become a deep hiccup. Maybe I'll cut it. But
a deep hiccup.
For eons, stars move around in the galaxies, and it just seems like there's so much energy created from those gravitational forces that you see on a large scale. I'm like, if we could tap into that even on a small scale, if that's happening on a large scale, if you could tap into it on a tiny scale, I don't know what the science is. I just feel like you see things in nature almost perpetually, not perpetually, but almost perpetually,
it's like fractals.
Sustaining itself. Yeah, that makes sense. But
it's like those patterns where it's just and
it kind of continues on itself when we talk about positive feedback loops and that kind of thing. It's just we don't need things to last in eternity. We just need things to last over a large scale. People get down on ideas that are this technology doesn't exist because it's too hard to grasp. But I think there's ideas in nature and the universe that we're still figuring out. If you look at the Higgs boson and
for sure, we're just learning things, and that's one thing I think that a lot of times we don't talk about, the black swan event. So maybe there are companies that are sitting on technologies right now that they should be releasing, but maybe there's going to be someone that comes up with some crazy invention in their garage, in the next few months. And it's going to be this is a solution. Everyone can have free energy in their living room today. Here it is. And it's just whoa, no one saw this coming. Energy problem fucking solved.
Done.
Yeah, there's free energy from everywhere.
Yeah.
And that could happen. I believe in human innovation, but usually there has to be a pain there. And I think there is a pain. Obviously, you're upset about that. You're upset about the trends that you're seeing. I'm not happy about all of them. I'm not as oh my God, this is going to end the world. But that's why we have different opinions.
I know the Tesla stuff, there's some Tesla stuff online that gets kind of out there.
Oh, I love Tesla.
Tesla has some good ideas.
About just...
But yeah,
you couldn't control electricity if you would have applied a lot of his ideas.
That's true. And the guy,
yeah, he sounds like he was the man.
He was the man, and I don't know. It's just one of those guys you think oh, we need another Tesla.
We might have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. that Black Swan event. No one saw it coming. All of a sudden, it's like, I mean, it could be an asteroidal impact and wipes us all out. And we're back here next week, just like,
so no one's going to hear this.
Pennsylvania survived. Somehow, Pennsylvania.
We are now 50% of the population.
It's us and a small country and Mandarin. Or Mandarin's a language. I guess it's not a country. Right?
Whatever. We're drunk. It's the end of the show. We made it to the end. So good job, Rodney.
It's the end of the world as we know it.
I like it.
It's the
And it's all your fault, Rodney.
oh no, it's like, yeah, just drill, baby, drill.
Drill.
I don't give a fuck.
Meanwhile, I'm going to hug trees and
I'll hug trees with
bark.
you. I'll hug trees with you.
But hey.
Love ya. Love ya.
Oh, that's sweet.
See you next week. Over a drink and a talk. What do you think? Yeah, Derek? Yeah, drink and talk?
I think so,
Maybe
yeah.
some yelling?
Yeah.
I hate you.